Recording.
All right. So, welcome back to the Chabinet meeting here in another week. And obviously, like you said last week, the world keeps turning and there's always more stuff going on. I am the department chair,
And I am the cabinet.
and we have a few little interesting articles here of some things going on with the Trump presidency soon to be waning, it appears, although there's some craziness even in the news with that, as I'm sure Cabinet has been paying attention to as much as I have with all this possible evidence.
It's just
Uh,
it's one of those things where it's like uh, two or three good pieces of evidence would be a lot stronger than 50,000 things that might be wrong.
right,
I,
right.
I don't know unless your goal is to win in the court of public opinion and you're not serious about a legal suit. But I understand there are multiple lawyers. You know, you've got Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell doing their thing, and they're sort of on the fringe, and they're not really acknowledged as being a part of the Trump team. And then you have Giuliani bringing different suits on more narrow issues. It's difficult for me to imagine 270 electors not going for Biden by the 14th of December. Um, and if that happens, then all of this is academic.
Right, right. And that's you took the words out of my mouth in the instance of that there's so much going on that no one can even focus on one thing, let alone any of that actually being really paid attention to by the mass media in general. And even then, like you have smoke, but it's not really that visible. There's video evidence here, and then there's this here, and even though it's evidence, you got to prove something with it, and that is just getting shot out from under them constantly. Um, Plus, then you have the Georgia runoffs, which are starting to gain in steam and interest all across the media platforms of the world.
Right, and of course, there's a good bit of I want to say a bit of wagging the dog as regards Georgia. Some of these larger media outlets have been repeatedly saying that the Trump vote will be suppressed as a consequence of the investigations into the legitimacy of the Republican vote will be suppressed as a result of the Trump vote investigations. So I don't think that that's the case. I think that's wishful thinking on the part of these larger organizations.
hmm Yeah, and it's I mean it's heating up down there, but you're seeing so much. I mean, I guess you could say the media is trying to steer away, continually from, oh, don't look at this, don't worry about anything else going on. Let's just get straight to Georgia and let's get this thing done with. But in the same instance, there's just not enough ammunition there, and not one single focus for Trump to really have any shot at possibly turning this around. So
I don't think so. So
yeah,
we'll get to that if there's fire anywhere.
something.
But right now I see lots and lots of smoke, and it's hard to make sense. So we may have a
Right.
better view with hindsight. In any case, uh, you've got an article on the ANWR drilling. So Trump has you explain to me. Trump has made an executive order to open up drilling in ANWR. Why wait until December
Well, and
of
that's
his
something that
first term?
I'm. Yeah, I don't know. That's almost something I kind of wanted to ask your view of it as well. I mean, the administration's going out the door, and apparently, I mean, if you talk to a lot of oil execs, this is something that's been talked about for quote 40 years, but nothing has really been done about it. Maybe, and I'll start reading the article here in
I
a
mean,
minute,
if
but
drilling in ANWR was a priority, I thought, wouldn't we already be drilling in ANWR if that was what your presidency wanted to do? Hmm. All right, yeah,
well,
go ahead and let us know because I would have assumed we were already doing that.
I mean, if you go back, and I mean, you could talk about the Obama administration to the early Trump administration. Excuse me here, a little hiccup there. Um, there was this push for energy independence, uh, whether it was coal, oil, whatever. And what you saw a huge amount of oil being drilled for off the in the Gulf of Mexico. You see it right now in Texas, a little bit in Western Pennsylvania. Apparently, they're talking about opening up oil rigs off the coast of Florida now. I just saw that actually yesterday, and a giant oil pipeline was being built during the Obama administration into Canada up to Alaska, and for the most part, it's almost completed.
But that
Not to
was the
mention all the,
Keystone Pipeline, but the Obama administration opposed that construction.
but it happened nonetheless. It still got pushed through during the, that's what I'm saying, the early Trump administration. It's
Huh.
there. Um, so it, at least, mind you, this is my opinion. I think Obama preaching, obviously a more left-leaning concept against oil quietly tried, or at least started the process that I think Trump really spearheaded in the end to be energy independent. I mean, we went from being reliant.
I think any
Go ahead.
progress made along those lines under the Obama administration wasn't being spearheaded from the executive office. It was being fought tooth and nail. Maybe you might argue it was an inevitable direction that the country was going to go, but I don't think the executive did that energy independence any favors.
Yeah. See, I think he quietly did a little bit because obviously you don't want to be portrayed as doing that, especially when the economy was as bad as it was with the Great Recession. So I think he quietly did that. But he didn't make that a staple, or he wanted to make that public. But Trump obviously blew that up and blew it out of the water and made it a huge part of his campaign. And I mean, look at the
Right,
amount of
and
oil
if
that
that's
we're
a
pumping.
huge part of your campaign, shouldn't ANWR be the centerpiece? Like, it just seems strange to me. 4 years later, suddenly we're bringing up ANWR. Like, why not bring this up 2 years ago? Why not bring it up 3 years ago? Why not bring it up on day one of your presidency?
Because I think he focused more on the interstate, in the mainland area here of where oil was, particularly Texas. Right, it's one thing to pump oil all the way from Alaska down to areas in Washington State and beyond. It's another when you have it pumped from Texas right to the coastline and then ship it out wherever you need to get it, ship it out.
Sure, but
Shorter
it seems
lines,
to me
less
you should be
money.
able to walk and chew gum.
Not to mention all the arguments they were, what is it? Yeah. Trump was having all sorts of arguments, obviously, with Trudeau in Canada. So I'm sure that was slowed. I see ANWR as a secondary uh, area to focus on when it comes to energy. Maybe that's why he waited so long. That's my
Okay, well,
perspective.
let's get into this article. Let's
Yeah.
find out what he actually did, if anything.
Right, yeah. So Trump rushes to lock in oil drilling in the Arctic Wildlife Refuge before Biden's term. So this was December 3rd. This is an NPR article, which also could say something, but we'll get to that in a minute. In a last-minute push, the Trump administration announced Thursday that it will auction off drilling rights in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in just over a month, setting up a final showdown with the opponents before President-elect Joe Biden takes office. The sale, which is now set for January 6th, could cap a bitter decade-long battle over whether to drill in the coastal plain, a pristine expanse that's home to migrant caribou, polar bears, and other forms of wildlife. The Trump administration has made it, or it's that made it a priority to open the land to development. I mean, this is right at the end of the administration, and just like you were saying, why would you wait so
Yeah, it
long
doesn't
if this
sound
was
like
a
a priority to
priority?
me.
See, to me, I think it's a secondary focus. That's again, that's just my opinion. Quote: Congress directed us to hold sales in the ANWR coastal plain, and we have taken a significant step in announcing the first sale in advance of December 2021 deadline set by the law, said a statement Thursday from Chad Padgett, Alaska State Director of Bureau of Land Management. In a dramatic shift in 2017, a Republican-led Congress approved legislation that opened up the coastal plain in oil development. It required 2 lease sales within 7 years, including the first no later than the end of 2021. But the Trump
Oh, I
administration,
see. Okay, okay.
yeah,
Congress set this deadline. I understand now.
yes,
I understand what they did in 2017. They were
mm-hmm.
hedging. They were saying, okay, well, if we put the date here, basically, if Trump gets a second term, then we'll push it on through. He'll have the political capital. If he doesn't get a second term, it can get swept under the rug.
Hmm.
And then their hands are clean.
I get, yeah, that is. The Republican Party has used Trump as a scapegoat for how long? And he is the perfect scapegoat. He is. Um, yeah, that's it. You're right. You're spot on. That is the case. So now they can wipe their hands clean of it or just completely ignore it. But he's going to try to push that through at the end here. Hmm. All right, here.
So yeah, what's your question? I think that's the extent. Unless there's something else in this article that's a surprise.
I mean, the only thing it goes into, it talks a little bit about the different perspectives in Alaska, whether they think this is okay. Now, mind you, there is a lawsuit where here down at the bottom, another two paragraphs, already conservation and tribal groups, as well as a coalition of 15 states, have filed lawsuits challenging the Trump administration's environmental reviews, and drilling opponents blasted Thursday's announcement of the lease sale. Now, that's something that's kind of interesting to me. Should other states have the right to sue if the federal government wants to do something in a state that's not theirs? Like, should California be able to sue the United States government for wanting to drill in Alaska? Isn't that between Alaska and the United States government?
It's difficult to imagine some sort of standing.
Like, yeah, what do you
What's
have?
your what's the harm? What are you claiming the harm is? Unless you're claiming that um, that pollution in the world or carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere creates a global harm to which you are party. In which case, California can sue me for driving to work.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, we are talking California. Just pulled that one out of my rear end, and it's probably the case. Yeah, how does that even work? That's
You would
just that's
have
a
to demonstrate standing of some sort. Again,
it's a,
our entire legal system is
yes.
predicated upon that you can demonstrate that someone's action is harming you. Um, Otherwise, you have no suit.
In this case, it's a legal speed bump. That's the attempt. It's a legal speed bump. Um, God, that almost annoys me even more than
Oh,
some of the other aspects.
just the procedural interference, right? Right. It has nothing to do with any actual legitimate complaint. It's
You
just like,
have
well, we can slow this down.
right. You have absolutely no right to tell me what to do in my backyard if I'm Alaska. How dare you? That's the instance when, well, yeah, I guess if my neighbor wanted to put something up in their backyard, there's obviously certain places where I can take that person to court saying they don't have the right to do that. That infuriates me to no end.
Look, if what they put in their backyard is like a neon sign that's flashing into your bathroom, I think that maybe you have a case to be made.
Right, you're right, but this is what you're saying there is probably what these 15 states would say, that this will affect the world and hence will affect us to some degree. This will, cause problems in my state, yada 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 yada.
Right.
Again, like as long as oil's not spilling all over the place and we don't have seals sinking, caribou being killed, polar bears dying.
Of course, that's the picture that they will paint,
Oh, but of course, of course.
and I'm sure somewhere you can point to some environmental impact. I have no doubt that some seal or polar bear or bird somewhere will be adversely affected by this drilling. The question is how safely it goes. Obviously, nobody wants an Exxon Valdez. Probably, least of all,
Certainly.
Exxon Valdez, evil giant corporation that they are. They don't want the bad press.
Certainly. It's interesting that we're again seeing this rush to try to get all this done last minute. And again, like you just said, they were hedging, and it seems to make sense. And well, I mean, I'll end this article already. The last thing that was interesting is that apparently the tribal communities up in Alaska have very mixed opinions. Like you would think it would be a little bit more leaning one side, but some of the community leaders for I'm going to butcher this. The Inupiat tribe is saying, "Oh well, no, we're actually kind of interested in this. They have a fairly decent track record. It would help the economy in this region. We really could use that." Um,
That story is not going to get a lot of play.
no, no, it won't. Like, wow. Um, yeah. So it's you never ever hear that side, obviously. So I guess my question, and again, I know we're trying to make this a little bit more simplistic, but it's very hard for me, very, very difficult for me. What are Trump's motives to do this right now? Why now at this moment? I mean, no, obviously he's leaving, but wouldn't doing this, if it actually succeeds, help a Biden administration economically?
question.
Cabinet, you're eating your microphone there, Cabinet. Cabinet, you there, buddy?
Hold on. Maybe now?
Yes, maybe now.
Oh, wow. I don't know what happened to my microphone. Your question is not will this happen? Your question is why?
Well, I mean, well, either it's going to happen or it's not. More than likely, and I think I'll give you full credit on this one. You're saying this is not going to happen, and I kind of agree with you on that. I don't think it is, but
You're
what?
saying why would you help your opponent's administration economically?
Right
And
now,
I think this is actually demonstrative of our difference in views on economics, because I think I take a longer term view on the economic situation than most.
okay.
Um,
So yeah, explain your point of view.
the
What is the
economy
purpose here?
the economy cannot be described in terms of a given year's GDP,
Hmm.
or whether or not stock markets go up or down this year, or even a given year's unemployment rate.
Hmm.
I think that is not a consequence of a president's policies.
Okay.
I think the president can do little short-term things in order to affect those things, largely to the detriment of the economy as a whole. Almost every time you make small interferences in such ways.
Hmm.
So I never connect the economy with the policies of a given administration directly. I think many people do. I think many people vote that way, and things like this, and or pay attention to the stocks in that regard. The United States economy is large and complex, and I think Donald Trump, for all his faults, genuinely wants the United States to be economically successful.
Hmm.
I don't think he always has the best plans for doing that, but I think that his plans, at the very least in the short term, are superior to most of his opponents. And actually, I think he has a better economic grasp than most of them do.
Right.
So when you ask, like, why would you make things good when your opponent's coming in? Why not salt the earth? I don't think he thinks that way.
I'm glad you said that because that's what I was thinking completely. And again, then this goes back to what I said about the Obama administration. Joe Biden will come in and say, "No, no, don't do this." But what would he do quietly then on the side? Because obviously we have become much more um, oil independent, and that has to be partially due to some degree, maybe a little bit, in my opinion, as I said, the Obama administration, but mostly the Trump administration.
Well, according to Peter Zeihan, this trend is inevitable.
Hmm.
This trend is just a fact of the nature that most of the countries in the world are producing less and consuming more, and the United States has what it needs at home. It just was never in our interest to develop it. We could get it really cheap from the Middle East, and we controlled the world's oceans. And since we were already controlling the world's oceans for security reasons, we might as well reap the economic benefits. Now that it's no longer in our security interests, according to Peter Zeihan and some others,
Hmm.
George Friedman,
Hmm.
to control the world's oceans and guarantee the peace and safety of transport, well, the cost of transporting things is going to get very, very costly. It's going to get a
Hmm.
lot worse to move goods around the globe. It's going to be much more dangerous. We have what we need at home. We'll expend a little bit of extra cost to exploit it here, and the rest of the world will be screwed.
Yeah, why cause a domestic issue at home? You know, regardless of whichever party is dealing with it or political term, when I can just get it from somewhere else, create an ally in the process, but also maybe create some messes.
Yeah, and some
Now,
frenemies. I mean, so
yep.
so
Hmm.
basically, the point is, if it is more costly to do it abroad than it is at home, then we'll pay the costs at home, and we'll be fine, and everybody else will be in a worse position because the United States actually has these resources to exploit. So we'll quibble and squabble about how to exploit them, but in the end, when push comes to shove, we'll exploit them. That's the more determinist view of U.S. history. I don't entirely agree. I think that bad policies can screw this up.
Oh, certainly. I would agree with you there, but I just see so much advantage in. Uh, let me put this lightly. I see, as long as it's done clean and correctly, I see so much advantage to having this done domestically with the amount of jobs it produces. Um,
Okay, but a bad economy can be just as beneficial to the party of dissidents. To even when in power,
yes.
even when holding the incumbency, if your whole message is things are bad and we need to radically change them to make them better, well,
Hmm.
then it's in your interest that things continue to be bad.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all I have to say. So what I have to say is no. Drilling in ANWR will not proceed in 2020.
Okay. And I sent the question to you, sort of. It's a bit of a hodgepodge. It's an odd one. This
I'm
is an odd
reducing
one.
the question to will drilling in ANWR proceed in 2021? Yes or no?
No,
All right. See,
no, it will
then
not.
we can be held accountable. If it happens, we're both wrong. Okay.
But things like this are not black and white. There's
No,
gray.
but the circumstance is gray. The prediction is black and white.
Oh, Andrew, you're sounding a lot like my wife right now. The world is black and white. No, honey, no. Your own daughter says it's gray. It's gray.
Some things can be measured.
Rah, 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 rah. All right, all right.
So,
So
on
anyway,
with violence in Paris.
yeah, you seem very interested to talk about Macron and his
Well, have
all
you
fun
seen
charade.
these pictures?
Oh, I've seen some videos of some stuff from May Day and some of the stuff that was going on with the yellow vests, which clearly to some degree they're still kind of doing. But go
Yeah.
on, please.
The Yellow Vest riots have evolved, and there are different rioting or rioting, protesting factions. Antifa is still heavily involved in various ways. I think more low key. They've gotten better at not really putting their names out there.
Mhm.
Um, so France has had a headscarf ban for some time in like public schools and things. They
Mhm.
had this teacher stabbed. They
Mhm.
had this. They've had all these attacks going back and forth. They've got people now in some places killing Muslims, and when they're asked why they did it, they're like because they were Muslims,
Yeah,
which
it
is
is getting
par for the
ugly.
course. If
Oh.
somebody kills a teacher, why did they do it? Well, they encourage people to wear short skirts, or they, uh, they didn't honor the tradition of wearing a mask, which is
Mhm.
a staple of Islam. Like, so, um, I, I think, well, okay, I'm going to read the article and then I'll get to what I think France's problems are or where they stem from.
Oh, go
Um,
on, please.
yeah,
Is-
so much to say about
how,
France.
how much time do we have? Oh, wait, not enough. Go
Not
on.
enough. Uh, Scores of hooded anarchists launched projectiles at riot police, smashed up shop windows, torched cars, and burned barricades during a demonstration. I'm sure it was mostly peaceful. In the French
Mhm.
capital on Saturday against police violence, the police fired back volleys of tear gas. So here you can see some of these pictures.
I really like this top photo here with the umbrella and the matching hat and purse.
Yeah, right. And it's just like the fire. Like it's like what is this?
It's a Tuesday.
Having a wonderful time.
It's just a Tuesday, a normal Tuesday. Can we find out the translation of what that says?
Yeah, I can get you some of these. Actually, why don't you look that up?
Yeah, I'll look
Pour
that up while
voter.
you. Yep, I got it. Yeah,
Okay.
you go on with your article. I'll find that out.
Thousands of people had begun marching peacefully in Paris when the clashes erupted between police and pockets of protesters, mostly dressed in black and their faces covered. Some used hammers to break up paving stones. The protesters were denouncing police brutality and denouncing President Emmanuel Macron's planning security policy plans. which the demonstrators claim would restrict civil liberties. And sure enough, they do. Like Macron has come down and he's basically like it's the Patriot Act on steroids.
Okay, so here you go. Again, this is Google Translate, but it seems fine to me. Translate, for your safety, you will have no more freedoms. Oh God, that is a scary thing to think about. And there you go. I mean, also what you were just saying.
Powers in order to keep the people safe. And meanwhile,
Oh, Cabinet, I think,
there's nothing.
Chabinet, are you there?
Have I lost
Oh,
it?
cool. Yeah, you were still talking there for a second, and I think either you're losing me or I'm losing you. You were saying something for about 20 seconds, and whatever you just said in the last 20 seconds, we heard absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay.
Um, I was trying to interrupt you, but I think you actually cut out, and I thought you paused. Um, I was just going to give you a translation real quick, and it
Yeah,
says
yeah. No, I heard your translation. It's for your safety.
yeah, for your safety, you will have no more freedoms.
Yeah, I think that went through.
Okay, well
So I'm
go
not
ahead.
sure.
What your response was?
So this is exactly almost right. It's almost an exact reflection of what Macron is saying he's doing. It's hardly even an exaggeration of his claims for why these policies are necessary. He's just saying, look, this is things have gotten too bad, and so these things won't be allowed. You won't be allowed to say these things. You won't be allowed to wear this kind of clothing. Um, and it's like, on the one hand, you have this big problem with Islam in France, but you can't admit that that's the cause of the problem. That you've got these people who have thousands years old ideas that are fundamentally different from yours, and meanwhile, your only response to it is this sort of multicultural milieu, this sort of European elite globalism, where you're saying, well, everything's going to be fine. Well, clearly everything is not fine, and people are killing each other, and it's just like this article cites the beating of a music composer, a black man named Michael Zeckler, by several police
Mhm.
officers in late November as the incitement of this angry protest. I'm not sure about that.
No, I'm not sure about that either. This has been going on for some time. You know, it's been underneath the surface, and even not even out underneath. Yeah, my God, English. Even not underneath the surface, it's been happening. But I guess you could say things have slowed down a little. But you know, with Black Lives Matter, and obviously there's been a real push for minorities with things that happen here in the United States. That happening sure drew a lot more people into the fray.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
One of the protesters claims France has a habit of curbing freedoms while preaching their importance to others. I mean, I just think that this is not going to get better. France is going to get worse and worse and worse. And will Macron lose his next election? Yes or no?
Yes.
Will he lose it to the left or right? Will it be Marine Le Pen coming in?
Ooh, man, she was so close. Um, wow. I don't know. I don't know. I, the thing is, this gives the right a lot of ammunition, but in the same way that that Trump is. You know, Trump was probably a little too heavy-handed for his campaign. Le Pen's in the same ballpark to some degree. I mean, you look at you
Well,
had Le
well,
Pen,
she's out there basically saying Islam is the problem, right?
right, and she will gain certainly some voters, um, but I don't know if she's going to gain enough.
Well, and back to like France's ancient problems or long running problems, I think that you have a very hard time criticizing Islam from a position of moral relativism, which is the official state position of France and has been for some time.
Hmm.
So I think if you're sort of saying, well, yeah, every culture is beautiful, and at the same time, yeah, but not that culture because in line with our libertine ethics. Like,
Hmm.
well, what makes your libertine ethics so important? Why is French culture meaningful? Because it's France. Because France is beautiful. Okay, well, it's hardly a
Yeah.
bedrock foundation.
Well, and this one, something interesting that I've heard obviously lately with the Trump more than likely on the way out, that there's a lot of people in the media saying, oh, this right wave that has come across Europe as well due to Donald Trump will also dissipate. Well, look what's happening in Germany. Obviously, look what's happening here in France, Italy. I mean, you have
Brexit.
yeah, you have Salvini in Italy, who even though he's not um, totally empowered anyway anymore, he struck a chord with the average Italian, and it was pretty effective. And Le Pen clearly did as well, because if I remember correctly, she did not lose by all that much. Um, I mean, especially when I remember they were trying to say like, oh, yeah, she's going to lose, and she's going to lose by a lot, but it was nowhere near what they anticipated. Kind of sounds familiar to a certain election we just had. Uh,
Yeah, it's just, well, this is how I feel about France. Just causes us to sigh. It's so complicated, but it's like it's such a losing proposition any way you look at it, which I guess is par for the course for France.
yeah, and Macron has, I mean, the article says has a U-turn. Macron has U-turned on so many things. He looks like such a weak leader, especially when you're next door
Although
to
that could
Merkel.
be said of Boris as well.
Yeah, it can be, but France always wants to take a more leadership role away from Germany. It always has and
Right, the
always will.
Gaullism.
Right. So it wants to have that strong leader, and Macron certainly is not that. Someone will come forward, and if they have enough gusto, possibly could be a pretty big player, especially with Merkel on the way out in the near future.
Okay, so you're saying yes, Macron will lose power, and you don't venture a guess as to who will replace him. I'm going to say yes, uh, and and it will be Le Pen.
Do you think Le Pen's still going to be the one leading the party?
Yes,
Okay, then I will go with Le
I,
Pen as
I
well.
I think that momentum has. Oh, okay, you're joining me.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on that
All right.
because it's for some reason I think Le Pen was a little too far right leaning, and that turned some people off. And if you just have someone else in that um, conglomeration of individuals come forward, maybe with a little bit more style, but I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like France hasn't been on fire. For how long now? It keeps getting itself in trouble, and Macron keeps proving how inept he is.
Well, I mean, literally on fire. Like your
Hmm.
your your Notre Dame Cathedral got set on fire, and your investigation was unable to produce a reason other
Anything.
than it was a complete accident. And meanwhile, the thing burned for like, I mean, we all watched it just burning for the better part of a day with
Hmm.
no emergency services in sight. Like, what the heck?
Oh my God, that was so. Yeah, I remember we were watching that. I was just like, this is horrible. Like, what is going on? Unbelievable that such an amazing monument would go up in flames.
It's,
And
it's just symbolic for all of France.
and so yeah, so many things even beyond. But not to dive in to the idea that it was done on purpose, but to for the French government to pave over. Oh no, that would no, certainly not. Then prove to me that it was an accident, but they never truly did,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
All right. I think we've got our questions answered. There are some things happening in the world that are sort of sad. Who knows what's going on with like whether Trump's playing some kind of 8D chess in ANWR. I think it's just to be able to say, look, I did this, and then force Biden to shut it down, basically.
Hmm.
So Biden will have to be the bad guy who shut down ANWR, the Grinch who stole the oil Christmas. Um, but I don't think it has any actual meaning beyond that. And if Trump was ever serious about it, he should have opened it up a lot sooner.
Right.
But then again, the Republicans weren't serious, as we learned as we read the article. Wait a minute, it was in 2017 they opened it up for this date. Why didn't they open up then? Well, they didn't want to be the ones who started the oil Christmas, as it were.
Trump is the perfect scapegoat for all parties, clearly.
Yes,
And
they're going to be sorry. They're going to be sorry. I mean, what will CNN do? Um, they're going to be so sad. Okay,
I'm like, well,
they're going to talk about Biden's foot cast or something. I don't.
Mitch
Okay,
McConnell.
yeah. The turtle isn't going to give him anything. All right, so
That
here I have. It's time for the Insuradian, and we're done for the day. So,
yes.
Insuradian number 4. When you set about any action, remind yourself of what nature the action is. If you are going to bathe, represent to yourself the incidents usual in the bath. Some persons pouring out, others pushing in, others scolding, others pilfering. Presumably he means attend the public bathing location in ancient Rome, so a pool.
Yes.
If you're going to a public pool, just realize that that's what you're going to be putting up with.
Hmm.
And thus you will more safely go about this action if you say to yourself, I will now go to bathe and keep my own will in harmony with nature. And so with regard to every other action. For thus, if any impediment arises in bathing, you will be able to say, it was not only to bathe that I desired, but to keep my will in harmony with nature, and I shall not keep it thus if I am out of humor at things that happen. So, don't be surprised when you go to a place in public where there are people all with their own, you know, agendas or actions, and if don't be surprised at those actions. Those actions should not put you off your kilter. You chose to go to that place. You should have
Right.
been mentally prepared for it.
Exactly. Be prepared when you go somewhere in public for strange public things to occur.
Yep. All right.
So,
Very good.
all right. So that was a good one. We will be back next week, and we'll see. Maybe the idea that you and I were discussing might be something we do next week. We'll leave you all who are listening on the hook, though, for what that will be. So have a good weekend, and we'll see all of you later.
Yep.